Well, thank you very much for inviting me here. It's a privilege to come to Bermuda and to talk to you all. My career, as you've heard, is perhaps slightly random in some respects. And I'm going to start by, as you can see, I'm going to say random is bad. And I think many of us recognize random is bad. Random can be devastating. Random can be catastrophic. Some random events can ruin lives. This is a picture I took. This is my mother. I took it about 3 years ago at my birthday. And at the time, she'd been losing a little bit of weight. And this was great. Nice to lose a bit of weight. She thought as she was getting older, her appetite might be decreasing a little bit. Perfectly natural. A couple of weeks later, well, she was no longer able to hold her food quite so well. We took her to hospital just to run a few tests. We thought it was just an ulcer. They ran a lot of scans, and all they could find was a small swelling, a small enlargement in one of her ovaries. She was diagnosed with ovarian cancer. Fine, we thought, we caught it early. She had one course of chemo. 4 weeks later, we lost her. She died. This was, I have to say, the most devastating thing I've ever had to live through. The shock, the unexpected shock of this. I was very close to her. She was a best friend to me. And when they investigated, well, she had a tumor the size of a melon inside her abdomen. The tumors had spread to her bowels, to her liver, to her lungs. She didn't have a chance. None of it showed up in the scans. Randomness is bad. And what is randomness? How can randomness be the cause of this thing? Well, it is. It's a random change to our genes that causes cancer in the first place. Our cells are designed to self-destruct if anything goes wrong with them. They're also designed to have a limited lifespan. We're designed to be mortal. So the first random mutation is going to be in one of these aspects. Cells malfunction. They have a random mutation, and that insidious little mutation stops them from self-destructing. Cancer cells become immortal. Another random mutation may occur, makes them divide uncontrollably. They proliferate. We get more and more of them. As more and more divide, and they're immortal so they don't die, they continue to have more and more random mutations. Soon they're diverting blood vessels into them. It's like some alien organism evolving and growing. It's made out of us, and yet it's not quite us. The last horrible trick that these tumors play is that they actually have children. They metastasize. Little pieces of them break off and go into our bloodstream, and they implant themselves into other organs, and they start growing secondary tumors. And when that happens, it's not good. Now, by chance, as we lost my mother, in my lab at UCL, we were investigating. We were using computers to model tumor development. And one of the nice things about tumors, or about computers, I should say, one of the nice things about computers is we can model many different parts of biology. We can model tumor development as well. We can model the genetic change that occurs within a tumor. This is something very, very hard to do in biology. It's very, very hard to pick out different stages of tumors, trace the genetic change, because tumors constantly change and evolve. It's very hard to understand what the genetic makeup of a tumor is. In a computer, we can actually model this, we can show this. So you're seeing these downward stripes in this chart here. Each downward red stripe is another set of mutated cells that are taking over the population. The back line in the middle is us performing chemo and surgery inside the computer. We're wiping out a lot of the cells. You can see, if you like, we're turning the clock back a bit. But it's depressing even in a computer simulation. All we can do using conventional treatments is delay the inevitable. If you catch a tumor early enough, yes, you've still got a chance. But conventional medicine with many cancers, as we know, the prognosis is not great. Now, this is not the only kind of randomness that's bad. As you may have guessed, I'm referring to our economy. And you could consider the actions of traders as they randomly look for new forms of trading, as they randomly package products together to sell them, particularly derivative trading. The meaning becomes lost in random noise, and this short-term greed, this randomness of their trading is not good for the long-term health of our economy. Again, this is something we happen to model in my lab. We model derivative trading. We model how different traders learn and evolve and randomly change their strategies in order to improve themselves. Again, you see over time, the difference between what traders should be doing and what they actually do widens. This is not a healthy situation. And we see how randomness is bad in other ways. Our technology is brittle. When a random event happens, we see a catastrophic failure. Who would have believed that a blown tire on Concorde could have resulted in the loss of life of everybody on board, plus people on land that the plane crashed into when it came down? Randomness is bad, and yet, despite all of this, I don't want to argue randomness is bad. I don't want to. I want to argue the opposite. Let's turn it on its head. We're used to randomness being bad. What about randomness being good? We would all be dead right now if it wasn't for our immune systems. Our immune systems keep us alive, protect us from the countless viruses, bacteria that are all around us. What you're looking at now is a computer model that we developed in collaboration with an artist. This is an immune response happening. How does our immune system embrace randomness? Well, within our white blood cells, there are B cells. B cells produce antibodies. And these B cells are randomly changing their genes as they divide so that the antibodies are very diverse. Why does it do this? So that we always have some kind of antibodies out there that can address new pathogens. So even though constantly new viruses, new bacteria are coming to existence that have never existed before, our immune system, using randomness as part of the solution, keep us alive. We always have a sufficiently diverse set of antibodies that we can attack this new threat. Now, this particular model that you're looking at is also an artwork. We developed this with an artist called Gordana Novakovic. And the fascinating thing about randomness in art is it's a real stimulation. It's a stimulation for our imagination, for our creativity. You place an immersive artwork like this in an audience, and you can see how it stimulates people. So we did this. We put this artwork in front of an audience, and you see some fascinating, you see how people are stimulated to move in extraordinary ways. And it's not the only way in which we see this. So we created, with our computers, we created a swarm. We created a virtual swarm within a music space. This was done in collaboration with a musician. If you think about the way a flock of birds or a school of fish move, they move randomly and yet they're coordinated as though there's some kind of central controller. There's no central controller involved. What we did was we pushed this virtual swarm, this model of a swarm, into a music space, and it generates music. There are other random events that are actually good and not bad. So one of the random things that I've done in my past is I'm a computer scientist. And when Apple first opened up the operating system for developers, I thought, well, wouldn't it be fun if I try it out, if I write an app? So it was a pretty random choice. I decided I was going to write a stethoscope. Why not? It could have been anything. I don't know anything about hearts. I don't know anything about stethoscopes. But I discovered I could make an iPhone amplify heartbeats so that you could actually listen to your own heart. So I created this app several years ago. To my surprise, despite this being a pretty random choice, I had cardiologists soon getting in touch saying, did you know your app works better than commercially available digital stethoscopes? So I said, oh, no, I didn't know that. And soon cardiologists were coming to visit me and saying, well, this is really cool. Can we add extra features? So I said, of course we can. So we added the feature to be able to email heart sounds to a special anonymized computer and to visualize in a spectrogram the heart sounds. So the result was we were crowdsourcing heart sounds from all of our users across the world. I was getting a lot of downloads. And to my surprise, the media picked up on this. I found myself on BBC 6 o'clock news, on News 24, on Fox, on NBC, on ABC, on the radio, on magazines, on TV. I was even on Waitrose leaflets. To my surprise, briefly, yes, I beat Angry Birds. It was brief, but I did do it. So randomness is clearly a good thing in some aspects. And how does randomness affect science? Surely science and randomness, well, they don't go together, do they? Well, I think some of the most creative scientists are the best scientists. And surely randomness has a lot to do with creativity. Isn't randomness really entwined in how we combine new ideas and modify them slightly to come up with our new concepts? This is Darwin. And Darwin's way of combining existing ideas with a little bit of a twist was the theory of evolution. And what is evolution? Well, it's randomness. It's the random combination of genes with a random mutation which drives life itself. So the very creation of life and creativity in life is driven by randomness. Randomness is a good thing. And can we harness this kind of randomness in our technology? Yes, we can. There's a kind of computer program called a genetic algorithm. This is something I've been doing for many years. So we evolve solutions to problems. We have a population of solutions to a problem. They have children. The better ones have more children. The kiddies inside the virtual world of a computer inherit their parents' genes with a little random mutation. Through this mechanism, we can evolve highly creative solutions to problems. So another of my random claims to fame is, many years ago, I was evolving furniture designs. I evolved many other things, but I started, in fact, with coffee table designs. And what you're looking at here is a population of different coffee tables. And this particular one that's just grown was the winner. And this is what it looks like today. It's been with me many years. It's had heavy piles of books placed on top of it. It's had me standing on it when I'm painting the wall. It's very solid, and it's very solid because it was evolved to be so. Now, we do more than evolve coffee tables. We evolve many different things. There's a company called Within Technologies which uses techniques such as genetic algorithms to optimize the structure of different designs, and then uses three-dimensional printers to turn the virtual into the reality. This company was actually described by Tony Ruto last year. Tony's an old friend of mine, and in fact, Within Technologies is a company created by one of my old PhD students. Now, we can also use evolution in other ways. So I'm going to be asking you to listen to some music briefly. Okay. So what you're listening to is a piece of music. I want you to pay attention now to the bass lines and the drum patterns. I'm going to ask you a question at the end of the second piece of music. Okay, so that was the first one. Now, here's the second one. Okay. So one of the random things that I have done in my past is I've worked with a whole team of musicians and computer scientists. And in fact, we had a music technology company, and we had our own record label. The record label was in association with Universal Music. Now, until recently, I wasn't allowed to tell anybody this. We had a very fat contract. We weren't allowed to admit that my genetic algorithm was evolving music that was then being released. Okay, so my question to you is, which of those two pieces of music was not generated by a human being? Which of those two pieces of music you just listened to was generated, was composed by my computer? So using applause, who thinks number one? Okay. Who thinks number two? Okay. So who thinks neither of them? Who thinks, oh, okay.
Both generated by the computer if you clap.
And who thinks both? Okay. So the answer is, well done. It was both of them. So where are we today? Well, today, I still think random is a good thing. I still think randomness should be part of the solution and not part of the problem. I think that so much that in my lab we create our own kind of computer. I call it a systemic computer, and this computer has randomness at its core. Just as our brain, just as biological organisms exploit randomness to make them work properly, so does this computer. So a computer program in my computer looks a bit like this. It It has a lot of different elements, different systems that interact randomly in parallel. And it allows us to model different biological, different natural processes. This is the flow of fire as different elements within the fire are transformed over time. This is genes interacting, and the strength of the interactions is shown by the thickness of the line here. We can visualize these complex systems in new ways. And this computer allows us to scale up the kinds of models that we can do, and allows us to run these models at far greater speeds than conventional computers can. This is what a virtual organism looks like running on this computer. It's consuming data. It's pushing this data, making it part of itself, and it's expelling waste. But despite all of this, despite, as I said at the beginning, randomness is bad. I've had catastrophic things happen to me because of random events, but random is good. I've had fabulous things happen to me because of randomness, and yet I can't say either. I can't say randomness is good or bad. All I can say is, if you look closely enough, if you drill down to the lowest parts of reality, to quantum physics, everything is random. Randomness isn't good or bad. Randomness is reality. We just have to embrace it. Thank you.